table with you?
You may.
Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, hi everyone, and this concludes my 4-day volunteer travel with the Alzheimer's Association to not only promote volunteerism, which of course is April of this year, the month. Oh, by the way, thank you for that presentation. It's always good, and I always learn something more than I knew before, or at least it's always made a different impact. So thank you for that. But anyway, so we started out on Monday, but basically a snowstorm, and Rhinelander and Antigo, a major snowstorm. Well, you never had weather that bad when I was governor. I want you to know that. And so we survived the snowstorm, and then on to Antigo, and then on to Rhinelander, and then on to Appleton area therefore. And then I went back to Milwaukee, and then last evening was Green Bay. Green Bay was really interesting because we were at the library in Green Bay, a public library. They were serving beer and also hard seltzer. And I had to point out to the people in Green Bay, it was very, very disappointing for me to see the fact that in Green Bay at this library, that they ran out of water before they ran out of the beer and the hard seltzer. And I said, what kind of community is this? I said to myself. But anyway, so we, you know, I'm happy to see you, and I thank you for coming by. And then I'm sitting there listening to this discussion, and I'm sort of thinking, and in a way, although I'm happy to see you, I'm sad to see you. And the reason that I'm sad to see you is because you're here because you have a situation where Alzheimer's is in your life. And I know that it's very difficult. I know that it's extremely challenging. I know that the emotional and psychological impact, along with the physical impact, is so powerful. But then I'm saying, okay, well, I'm sorry you have to be here for that, but at least we're going to be able to talk a little bit about it and hopefully make things just a little bit easier. I contend that if there's one thing worse than Alzheimer's, it's ignorance of the disease, and ignorance of the disease by the medical profession, who doesn't understand that when there is this diagnosis, there are two patients, the person living with this disease and also the caregiver. The caregiver has some really tough challenges because of the human nature of things directing and the course of a river. By nature, not taking care of oneself, being afraid to ask for help, sometimes feeling deserted because friends don't know how to handle it, not sleeping decently, not eating well, not getting enough exercise, not getting enough heart health. And so, if there's one thing worse than the disease, it's ignorance of the disease, but also by communities. Also churches and parishes and synagogues and human resource departments and attorneys, and people just simply don't understand it. And what happens because people don't understand this disease, they're afraid of it. I call this disease not a chicken casserole disease. So if I fall and break my hip and I'm laid up, you'll bring me chicken casserole. And if I maybe have open heart surgery and I need to recover, you'll bring me chicken casserole. But now there's Alzheimer's, and because people don't know how to handle it, they don't know what to do. Friends, neighbors, relatives. So there's no chicken casserole, even though the challenges of Alzheimer's are every bit as much as so many other diseases. So here we are on April 20th, is the day the 20th of April, and survived one of the snowstorms on last Monday, and never experiencing anything like that during the time I was governor. And we're speaking here in Sturgeon Bay. And this is an area which is so important to Stork County because Elaine and I would spend a lot of time here. And we had a boat and we did a lot of cruising. And there's two things. Number one, we had so many wonderful memories and just that stand out so much. but it was here in Sturgeon Bay in Door County. We had a boat, and we would travel with friends, Ron and Judy Lockett. I don't know if you know them. They're up there in Fish Creek. I think it's Egg Harbor. But anyway, so we're in the boat. We're anchored overnight, and Ron Lockett came over to me, and he woke me up, and he said, Elaine is in our cabin. And in order for Elaine to be in their cabin, she had to climb over me and somehow or another get over into the forward part. And she was asking them, where is Marty? Well, my two Elaines, okay? That was second Elaine. That was the Elaine who was now challenged with Alzheimer's. So I realized then that I couldn't do any more of that boating, because if she could climb over me at night and I not know she's gone, and she went someplace that I could never imagine she would go, into another area, another compartment, I realized that this is gonna stop. But then I also realized that there's some other significant changes that are going to be happening in our life. So it was 22 years ago about when Elaine began to show signs of Alzheimer's. She would get lost going to and from places she had been going to and from for 20 years. She was a great cook, but she got her recipes mixed up so badly sometimes that she would cry. So that was the beginning of the second Elaine. And the first Elaine, well, that was the girl I met when I was a freshman, Latin class, high school, 1954. And I fell in love with her right away, and so we dated, and we went steady, and we got engaged, and we got married, and 4 children and 13 grandchildren, now 7 great-grandchildren. My friend, my companion, my life partner, everything that you could ever want in a person to share your life with. And so, as I said, she began to appear a little bit later, but the second Elaine. But one of the main characteristics about the first Elaine was she was so energetic about my campaigns, and she'd work extremely hard, harder than anyone else. But then if I would lose, she would never let me feel defeated. And it's that feeling that she gave me about never letting me feel defeated that prompted me to want to write the books, to talk to you a little bit about this whole business of Alzheimer's. And again, the fact that if Alzheimer's is bad, ignorance is worse. But I'll talk to you a little bit about these my two Elaines. So you are entitled to one free book like this. And we were talking earlier with Nick Freemuth, who's with, he said Facebook, he does Facebook. Anyway, so I said, these books, if you could hold on to them for 1,000 years, they could be worth like about $5 million each, with inflation maybe $7.5 million each. So this is something that's going to be very, very valuable. So in telling you about these books, this book here I self-published. And that means that I hired the printer, I hired the person to do the artwork, I hired the person to get the Library of Congress number and so forth. And there are 55,000 of these books that have been printed. 55,000. Roughly only 49,800 left in my garage. And so it's going to be an uphill kind of a thing. But anyway, so this book is, you have one that says the 3rd edition. This is one of the first editions that came out. And in each edition, what we have done is we've changed and updated the information relative to what's going on in Alzheimer's world. But then also in your edition, this one here, you also have what is called Conversations from the Road. And we have talked in many communities in many areas, and we would generally get questions, and these are some of the significant questions that we received. Those are the ones talked about in here. They're also in here too. But anyway, so the important part that I want to mention about Conversations from the Road, and that is this discussion that we have or don't have with our children. When Nick was talking with me, he said, what's one of the most important things you think about the book? And I said, about 4 weeks before we're ready to go to print, I find a series of notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping since her diagnosis. And I went on to say that we had prayed together and we had cried together, but never did I fully understand the courage that it takes to be diagnosed with this disease and go forward. Never did I really truly understand that challenge until I read her notes and journals. And never did I understand how really important I was in her life. I was really her lifeline. And I wasn't smart enough to be aware of that. And so, anyway, so I'm her lifeline. We look through these notes and these journals, and my two daughters, Kathy and Christine, and I went through all of these journals. And when we went through, we cried through some. But each chapter begins with one of the notes or entries that Elaine made in her journal. And that hopefully will give us an insight into what is going on. So I started saying, in this book here is conversations from the road and, not talking with the children. So I'm really pleased because I wrote a book. But I felt so disappointed in the fact that I didn't include what was going on with Elaine until I found her notes. Well, now I'm feeling really good, but then I began to realize I never really talked with the children and brought them along with this whole journey. And so the point being is that as we learn more about this disease, it's going to be so important for us to make sure that we are keenly aware of the fact that this disease is affecting not only us as caregivers, but also your loved one as well, who in their own way are grieving and trying to do the best that they can to proceed on the journey. This book here is the same story as this book, but this book here was back in June of this year, last June, was published by the Harper Publishing Company because they felt that this book was important enough to go nationwide to help others. And so there's a couple of differences between the book. Of course, you can see the difference in the covers, but also when you look at this book, you will also see pictures in here about some of our life together. Bobby Kennedy, Jimmy Carter, Elaine in her wedding dress and so forth, but no pictures in here. But in here, there is a conversation I had with a neuropsychologist. And what I wanted to do was to reinforce my own experiences, personally, that I talked about in here, to back it up with some medical background. And so there is hopefully as down to earth as possible, this conversation between myself and this neuropsychologist. But also, there is no indexing. Now you're going to be quizzed on all of this. The questions from Marty is going to be, what was the difference between the two books? And you better get this right because, but anyway, so also in this book here, there is an index. And not only is there an index, but there's also notes, to reinforce what I said, which I think really is important. But what I want to do is to go to into the index, and I go to Alzheimer's Association. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 references to the Alzheimer's Association. And I point that out because how important the Alzheimer's Association is to people like us, caregivers who are going through this disease. The fact that they're willing and eager to be helpful and to try and develop greater support for the attention given to Alzheimer's, and also what kind of help they gave me. I went to counseling because of the Alzheimer's Association. They helped me immeasurably. It took a lot of courage on my part to finally realize I needed help, but I finally got to that point. And so this book here, and this may sound like I'm bragging, but people have told me they actually picked up this book and they started to read it and they couldn't put it down. And I don't know if that's ever happened, but what happened, the reason that came about, a year ago, January, it was so cold, it was really cold. But I was running out of books, I was running out of these. Harper's hadn't decided to make that decision yet, but so I was short of books. And so I called the printer, I need books as soon as you can, and the printer worked so hard, so quickly, that he got these books not only done on time, but he also got them done ahead of time. But you see, this is shiny. That's like a varnish, like a lacquer. Well, he didn't let it dry, and it became sticky. So people picked up this book and they started to read it, and they couldn't put it down. And they tried so hard to do that, and they just couldn't put it down. And worse than that, they had the book, and what happened was they had to go to the store. You get milk and you get eggs and butter and so forth, and they couldn't get their arm and the book through the arm of the coat at the same time. So they had to walk like this, and drape it over their shoulder. And I thought, well, why couldn't they move their hand down a little bit so that people can see the front of the book, which helped be more people aware? But that didn't happen. And then now they want to sue me for frostbite for 13 people who received that because they couldn't put the book down. And so you think you got problems. I have my own issues to deal with, and I want you to know that. Now, 20 years ago plus, when Elaine was diagnosed, it could not be cured. It can't be prevented. Today, April 20th, in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, we're here together. Alzheimer's still cannot be cured, and it still cannot be prevented. And so to get involved and try to get them to increase the funding for research becomes so very, very important. But I do want you to know that in Elaine's instance, that we went through a series. So Elaine was diagnosed, and so for a total of 20 years, so 12 of that we were at home together, and I tried to do everything I could as a good caregiver. Sometimes rather stupidly, I did things because I was ignorant. But anyway, so 12 years at home, and then 8 years in assisted living memory care. So I want to sort of set for you the picture where, I said it 20 years it could not be cured or prevented. So to set a picture where it developed into a situation where they actually thought that Elaine was getting better. And that was exciting. And I'll tell you how that came about. So Elaine and I had having lunch in the cafeteria assisted living memory care. And we're having lunch. And now she begins to tell me how intelligent and how good looking I am. And so she's going on about talking how intelligent and good looking I am. And so what happened is there's this doctor and this nurse sitting over here. They're hearing Elaine tell me how intelligent and how good looking I am. They looked at me and said, yeah, he is intelligent and good looking. So they wrote an article for the New England Medical Journal. And they pointed out that Elaine is getting better because she knows that I'm intelligent and good looking. Well, these people at the New England Medical Journal they know what things are about. They wrote back and said, look, I want to tell you something. They said, we can't accept this article because you have to show 3 things where someone is getting better. You only show 2 things where someone is getting better. A little bit of time went by, and now all of a sudden, we're having lunch again, Elaine and I, by happenstance, the same doctor and the same nurse who wrote the article is sitting over there. And now Elaine got onto one of these tangents. She got, how did we meet? How did we meet? How did we meet? Elaine, when we were freshmen in high school, I said, we met each other in Latin class. I fell in love with you right away, and I knew I wanted you for my wife, and you absolutely beautiful. And I said, but not only that, I said, if any boy got within 50 feet of you, I bopped him on the head. Well, she looked at me and she said, you're a bullshitter. So, well, now they had the 3 things, okay, to show that Elaine was getting better. And so if you go to the New England Medical Journal, probably around August, that edition, you're going to be able to see that. So Elaine says, you're a bullshitter. I said, Elaine, that may be true. Let's keep that quiet. Oh, no, she said, it won't do any good. Everybody already knows. And so we had that experience. But I want to share another experience we had, which really sort of more actually happened. But anyway, so we're sitting we're having lunch. And as we're having lunch, she begins to cry. Elaine, why are you crying? Well, because I'm beginning to love you more than my husband. I didn't ask her what's wrong with your turkey husband. I didn't do that. But what it did prove to me was that it was not necessary for her to know my name in order for our hearts to touch. And I try and share with caregivers and with families of caregivers and others who are in the steer of the journey. That's okay if they don't know our name. The poet once said that I may not remember what you said, but I will always remember how you made me feel. And so the holding of the hand, or the singing of a song together, or the giving of a hug, or just being nearby, those aspects become so very, very important. And so people say, well, I don't know if I should go visit so-and-so because they don't know if I'm there anyway. Well, there's a hand to hold, and there's a smile to give, and so forth. And please, I want to have people understand they don't need to know our name. But then we go to the two Elaines, okay? So the one beautiful Elaine never let me feel defeated no matter what. The second Elaine, it didn't happen on a Wednesday, it happened on a Thursday, Elaine, and it wasn't the Smiths, Elaine, it was the Joneses. And not only that, why did you put the car keys into the dishwasher? And I want you to know that you asking the same questions over and over again, I told you 15 minutes ago that we were going to leave in 20 minutes. Why are you keeping on at, and so forth. What was happening is I was trying to keep Elaine in my world by saying, I told you before and I'm telling you again. Why did you put this? So I talked about Elaine's diary. And so here, a person with courage, diagnosed with this disease, is trying to move forward with all of the doubts that come about when you realize you're going to lose your memory, with all of those doubts that was coming about. In addition, she was being criticized for everything that she didn't say because she didn't remember if it was the Joneses or the Smiths, or there was Saturday or Sunday, or whether it was one thing or another. And so what I realized and wanted to share with others is that as long as we try and keep them in our world, life is so much more difficult. Once I understood and realized that I should join Elaine's world, that life then is going to be easier for her, and it's also going to be easier for me as the caregiver. Alzheimer's cannot be cured or prevented, and because of that, we have a choice to make, or maybe a couple of choices. One, I think, is not a choice, it's a reality, and that is we can't fight this disease head on. There's no way I'm going to convince Elaine that she put the car keys in the dishwasher and she shouldn't be doing that because she didn't remember it in the first place. No way I'm going to correct her that it was the Smiths rather than the Joneses and so forth. What is my goal then if I can't fight the disease head on? The answer is to try and help our loved one live their best life possible. How do I help my wife live her best life possible? One of the first things to do is to join her world. And so that if whatever is going through her mind and so forth, and I can give her comfort, that is truly one of the important things that I should be doing. Also living in her world, there's therapeutic fibbing. I talk about that in the book, therapeutic fibbing. So Elaine asked me once, how are my parents? Well, I said, they're both dead. And the shock on her face when she realized she didn't maybe say goodbye, much less attend the funeral. And now, all of a sudden, she realizes that her parents are both dead. The shock on her face, I said, I'm never putting her through that again. So the next time she asked me, how are my parents? Oh, I said, they're doing great. I said, your mom likes her church work, your dad likes his sport. Oh, she said, that makes me so happy. That's therapeutic fibbing. You're taking notes, but you have to remember two things on therapeutic fibbing. Two things. One is, I tried it the first year of marriage. Doesn't work so good. The second point on therapeutic fibbing, which is also important, and that is that when Moses brought the 10 Commandments down from Mount Sinai, I was there. Therapeutic fibbing is not among the 10 Commandments. In fact, therapeutic fibbing, even if you took take a look at the opposite side of the tablet. It says therapeutic fibbing is good. And so, now, as we look at joining the world of this person who now is, another thing I learned was the importance of redirection. And the point, you're never going to win a battle with Alzheimer's. And so it's 9:30 in the morning, Dane says, I want a glass of wine. And no, you can't have it, that's not the answer. The answer is, you want red wine or white wine? You want to have it in a taller glass or in a shorter glass? Do you want to drink it with the neighbor, or should we invite your sisters over? Redirection, not taking it on head on, but understanding a little bit of the therapeutic fibbing, also understanding a little bit of the redirection. But let's assume hypothetically for a moment that redirection doesn't work in this instance. Well, let's make the judgment. What is wrong if Elaine has a glass of wine at 9:30 in the morning and she doesn't know it's morning, noon, or night anyway? And so have the glass of wine. Or she reaches across and grabs somebody else's wine glass. Well, thank you for moving the wine glass so it didn't spill, or not, that's not your. So I know that it's extremely tough to live with this disease. I've seen and I've talked with many people who share the experience of having their heart break in the course of this, and then to understand that our option is to try and do the best we can in helping our loved one live their best life possible. By the grace of God, we've got support. We've got the Alzheimer's Association, who is working with all of the research and trying to develop greater interest. If Alzheimer's is bad, ignorance of the disease is worse. And through the walks and through the works that they do, they're trying to make more people aware, so there's more support for the things that have to be done. Aging and Disability Resource Center, oh my gosh, the numbers of times that people have told me how important the Aging and Disability Resource Center was. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and thank you for being here. And so one thing I wanted to cover a little bit, and this is for caregivers, and well, we have to be careful of the time. So this is unrelated, but it reminds me of a story. So anyway, so this speaker comes to, campaigning, and you go to this big auditorium, and there's only one person there. So I proceeded to lay out my 35-point program to this one person. And he stayed till the end. And I said, I really want to thank you for staying till the end. I said, that's really very nice of you to do that. Well, he said, I'm a farmer. And he says, he said that if I go out in the field to feed the cows and there's only one cow there, I feed that cow. But I don't give him the whole load. And so I want to be careful, so I don't give you all the whole load. But then another time, I was giving a talk, and there was just this other person too, so I go through my 35-point program, and I say, hey, thank you so very, very much. I'm really glad that you would say that's quite a compliment. He said, well, don't give me a compliment, because I'm the next speaker. So, but anyway, we're talking, I want to talk about brain health and so forth. I said that you almost were going to get a brand new Ford Mustang. Here is the thing. I did not win the multi-billion-dollar lottery, okay? I did not. Had I won it, I would have said to myself, anyone who comes to Sturgeon Bay on April 20th is going to get a free Ford Mustang electric car. That's for sure. But not only that, but we would have had enough money left over to take you all on a big cruise. We'll go into the Mediterranean, and who knows where we're going. But a lot of, now let's assume we're on that cruise and one of you falls over. We want to save you. So we throw you a lifeline. You grab the lifeline, but because the lifeline is frayed, it breaks, and now you drown. We caregivers are the lifeline for our loved one. And our loved one is struggling through this all, and needs this lifeline. And so if we throw them a lifeline and it's frayed, what good does that do? A lifeline becomes frayed because sometimes we as caregivers chew on it and gnaw on it a little bit, every day, a little bit at a time. We don't get enough sleep. We don't get the right kind of diet. We don't get the sufficient brain health. We don't do all of the things that are so important to do, so we lose our capacity, our ability to be a good caregiver, our objective thinking, our patience, irrationally irritable. I had a mentor, and but I was going to ask, would you remind me of mentor? I'm going to get back to the mentor. But anyway, so what happened, I wear suspenders, and it's coming down like this all the time. But the reason that is, and this will not be on the test, okay? But anyway, so the reason that this shoulder is this way, arthritis, and it was a reverse shoulder operation. And when God made us, he put the cuff of the shoulder here, and he put the ball of the shoulder here, and that's how this, in fact, is a reverse shoulder like this. It heals quicker, it's less painful, but it makes a difference in the size of your shoulder. And everything was really working well, and I was feeling good until the doctor called me and told me that he had misplaced his watch during the operation. And so I was sort of thinking, what is this going to do here? So I sort of listened, and I didn't hear too much of anything going on there, but they thought I was really weird walking around. They said, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm trying to hear if there's any TikToking in there. Don't do that in front of people. They're going to... Anyway, so where were we?
Mentor.
What?
Mentoring.
Oh, mentor. Okay, we're talking about, a lifeline. Mentor. I called up my mentor once and I said, do you ever just feel like screaming? He says, not only do I just feel like screaming, he said, I actually scream. And so one of the points then is that this disease is tough. It's tough emotionally. It's tough from the standpoint of grieving, of depression, and the anxiety. And we sort of have to get all of our resources in order so that we can do the best job possible. One thing I didn't realize soon enough was that it's one thing special for me to do everything I can to help Elaine, but not necessary for me to do so many things that are senseless that I die before she. My children actually had an intervention with me in which they said, Dad, we're losing Mom, but we don't want to lose you. You've got to take better care of yourself. And so as you and I talk about, and we try and be with each other on this journey, to know that there is hope out there with support from people, to know that yes, things are tough, but maybe we can make things easier by taking care of ourselves, by asking for help. He asked me before what are one of the most important things, and I think having the courage and the intelligence to ask for help, because asking for help means you're not giving up. If you're surrounded and you are in dire circumstances and you know that things are really tragic and you don't ask for help, what kind of sense is that? Yeah, no sense at all. So anyway, what we can do is, if you want, we can open it up for any questions or thoughts. And I want to point out that because I'm hard of hearing, I will try and listen carefully to your question, and I will try and repeat the question to make sure that not only I heard it right, but so other people too. And if you ask me a question that I do not know the answer to, I will rephrase your question, and you will not be able to ask me any question that I won't be able to respond. Anyway, so Carrie is the one who's responsible for the walk here, and I'm energized about wanting to have the most successful walk ever. And one of the reasons I think we can do that is to help our children and our grandchildren get involved in the walk, because that's going to create an awareness, greater awareness. But in addition to the walk, creating that greater awareness, it's going to help our grandchildren feel that they're more involved and give them more of a reason, but then also establishing a better communication. And so in the walk, they have the different, where are the different, if you look over there, the different flowers. Well, I graduated from having a wife with Alzheimer's that was living into having a wife with Alzheimer's that passed away, so I have a different color. But we still want to do everything we can for people on that journey. So So thoughts, ideas, and we're just glad that you are here, but I'm sad that you are here. But I'm also glad you are here.
In 2017,
Pardon?
in 2017, you were in Hartford, Wisconsin, making a presentation. Might have been one of your first ones.
Yeah? Oh, let me see.
Well, this is the book you just
Oh,
gave me,
that's-
but I
okay.
bought about half dozen of the first editions, had you sign them and gave them to my kids and friends. And if you haven't read this yet, I haven't read the third edition yet. I did read the first. If you haven't read this yet, this is the closest adaptation to what I lived with my wife. In 2017 was when I had to put my wife into memory care. And I read the 36-hour day, which is another big book they tell you to read. And I read this. The 36-hour day was good, it helped. But this was the best, just because what you were living through, what you lived through, was what I was beginning. And I can't recommend this enough. Just it's easy, quick read, and it made me feel like I wasn't alone, because thanks to you,
Thank you.
that I knew someone else was dealing with what felt like the exact same thing I was dealing with. So this is very worthwhile.
Thank you
And I
very
really
much.
appreciate you doing this.
Yay. Thank you. So the question was, how could I possibly have lost the election for governor back in 1978?
That's what I meant to say.
That's what I meant. So thank you very much. So, we do have, I want to preface by saying I am not a book salesman, but I do want to have as many people as possible have an experience like you had with the book, to help people feel they're not alone, but to also receive some additional guidance and so forth that might help make the life of a caregiver, as well as the person diagnosed with this disease, help their life as well. And so we do have extra copies. These are marked $16.95 and manufacturer's suggested retail, and we'll sell these for $15 if you want additional ones, and if you want to buy 5, you can buy 5 for $50, and so there should be a savings there. This book here, first of all, if a national publisher takes over your book, they don't listen to you. I had so many additional suggestions and ideas but one of the things they did that I didn't like, they raised the price of the book to $27.99. And I think, well, but that's what it is. But because I'm an author, I get an author's price, so we'll be selling this if you want for, what is that? $20, for $20. Now, if you are in Canada, you can pay $34.99 if you're in Canada. And also, if you buy the books right now, there is no sales tax. I will not charge sales tax if you promise not to tell Governor either. No, what we do is we take the money and accept it and checks my two lanes, but then what we do is when it comes time for me to file the sales tax report, I extrapolate, X numbers of sales taken off the 5.6% or whatever it is. And if I make a mistake, and I'm living in Wapana, you come by and visit, that would sure be nice to see you. All right, well, listen, thank you for being here, and to our volunteers and to the Alzheimer's Association and also to ADRC. If you read the book and you like it and you don't mind getting on Facebook and wherever, that would be something that I would appreciate if you think it's helpful. If you read the book and you don't think it's very helpful, okay? All right, any further thoughts or ideas? Yes, sir.
How could you possibly lose the election?
It's always good to have a son in the audience. All right, well, thank you. And there's still water left?